You know, DIY projects are great, but when you tackle a larger one, it can really seem a bit overwhelming. Corbin Clay has developed a program to be your extra set of eyes on the details and to help you walk through the process.
Now it's time for Open House, sponsored by Pyramid Heating and Cooling.
All right, well, you know, when it comes to remodeling and when it comes to being a homeowner, there are so many hiccups along the way. And when I find somebody that really has been down the same path as it always sparks my interest. Corbin Clay, welcome to Around the House Northwest, man. I want to talk about your Wayhome program.
Absolutely. I appreciate you having me. Happy to help however we can.
Well, you and I could sit here and talk about war stories throughout this whole entire show, which we're not going to do today. But I want to talk about how you're helping homeowners out there, because you have something different that I think can help a lot of people out.
Yeah. So throughout my entire career, and I'm a, for lack of a better phrase, classically trained cabinet maker. I went through an apprenticeship and had, finishing program and everything. Throughout my entire career as a cabinet maker, then going on to own my business and then turning into a custom home builder, I would very often have friends, colleagues, relatives reach out, via FaceTime or text and say, "Hey, like we just had our bathroom remodeled, like, to you, or should they have put down quarter round? Like that seems like the flooring company's job." Like, right? There were just all these kind of questions coming from a miscommunication or a lack of transparency throughout the process. So they'd reach out to me and say, "Hey, should this have been done? Like, does this look right?" And then I would just, listen and then advise them accordingly. Sometimes it would be like, "No, that looks pretty good. I mean, they could have done a slightly better job, but for the most part, that's pretty good." Or, and unfortunately this was often the case, you go, "No, that's not done properly at all. Like that LVP needs an underlayment," or whatever the case is, on and on and on. And then, like I said, throughout my career, it's always bothered me, who do homeowners reach out to if they don't have a son-in-law in the trades or a colleague or a cousin? Mm-hmm. So that's why we created Wayhome, was to offer unbiased, personalized expertise for homeowners and their projects.
It is so smart, because I can't tell you how many times as, radio show host, podcast host, and now television host, that I'll get a picture, "Hey, it's cabinet install day." And I'm like, okay, my first thing I'm worried about is, why is the floating floor down and you're putting all the cabinets on top of it, right?
I hear you. I hear you. We get that one quite a bit.
And there's just so many issues and so many little things that can be done that, and there's not really a standard out there for installing cabinetry like you think there would be. There are technical ones where, okay, it has to be this and happy that, but there's not really, it's not like electrical code. It's not like plumbing code where you go, it's black and white. There's some artistry to it. And unfortunately, there's some really good artists and there's some that are aspiring to be.
Yeah. There's way too much subjectivity and not enough objectivity on the finish side of the process. And I don't mean like literal finishes like varnish or paint. I'm talking about finished carpentry, flooring, drywall, that type of stuff. Most of that isn't even in the code. Generally, the building code is for safety. Let's make sure we have a hurricane tie here so the roof doesn't fly off. And that's great. But what about is that baseboard mitered properly? Is the top of it caulked properly? Should this have been scribed to the floor, or are these little gaps okay? Like, there's just a million different little variables, all of which require, kind of context and nuance to say, well, let's get the details and then we perform accordingly, and appropriately for your specific circumstance. But yeah, to your point, it can be a little frustrating because it's really, at the end of the day, just up to the specific preference and ultimately integrity of the installer, the painter, the floor finisher, whatever it is, and saying, is this done properly? Yes, I'm going to stop, or no, I don't care, and now I'm going to try to pull wool over the homeowner.
Well, it's interesting. You bring up a good point, because a cabinet installer could come in and put those cabinets 2 inches out of level over a 10-foot run, and that would meet building code because it doesn't address it, right?
Precisely. Yep. That's not in the code at all.
Not in the code at all. And so, there's ANSI specs and things like that if we want to get way into the weeds. But the problem is, even at those, they don't really address it. And so what you've got here is brilliant, because you're right. Hey, the corner fillers could have been put in a better way, or, should they be mitering this? There's a lot of little aspects of good practices that an installer should be doing when they put it in, but it's not really written down anywhere.
Yeah. And to that point, we try to get involved as early as possible, because it's really hard, as you know, to put the toothpaste back in the tube. Once that tile's been grouted, that's much more complicated. Once the countertops have gone down, everything now is much more complicated. Once the stain has gone on to the unfinished cabinets, that's one of the things we see most with our customers is site finished cabinets. And unless you have a very skilled finisher, if you're staining, things can go wrong very quickly. So before that happens, because it's very hard, if even possible, to fix that, let's make sure all the way back at the beginning, when we're vetting potential cabinet makers, when we're chatting with builders, how do you do your sampling process? What type of coatings do you prefer? All these little things that we can help a homeowner not only vet the pros they're considering, but vet the process specifically, to where maybe we don't entire cabinet making, process here, but let's at least make sure that we're seeing the finish we want on the actual cabinet door and not just a little phone size sample. Offer to pay, it'll be worth the $50, $100, whatever. But let's make sure we're all on the same page. Aligning expectations as much as possible, as early as possible, and then throughout the process is really where we feel that Wayhome can add the most value.
And this is smart, man. How do people track you guys down? Because I know we've got viewers out there. They're like, oh my gosh, I got to start a project and I don't even know where to start. Because what do they say? Like 1.6 people, they do 1.6 kitchen projects or cabinet projects in their lifetime. So it's not a learned trade for most homeowners.
Yeah, hellowayhome.com. HELLOWAYHOME. I had a colleague say never do math in public, never spell in public, right?
I'm just as bad, my friend. I'm just as bad. Thanks for coming on today, man. And you guys are solving some hard questions for people out there. And if you've got a cabinetry project coming up, or even a construction project, looks like we've got some good solutions for you. Thanks for coming on today.